Hey everyone, welcome to Massachusetts Sports Central. We are finishing up with our last NFL division preview, and this one is for the AFC East. Um, so we are going to do as we've done on every other one, go from worst to first. And so before I get into that, I will say that in all the other ones, even though there were often predictions that I came up going through game for game, where there may have been some of the teams may have had more wins than I really think that they should have gotten, and some that may have gotten less wins than I really would have thought that they would have gotten. For the most part, I am just going to stick by my predictions, based on going through the schedules on those. So that's leading me up to saying I'm not going to do that with the AFC East. So let's start with number 4, the New York Jets. So, as everybody has been talking about, they are a bad team, one of the worst teams that most people have seen. Um, and there's a lot of talk about going winless. And if you look at what I have for them, 0-16. They are just a bad team, and they actually have a pretty tough schedule overall. So I'm just looking at like the only games I really see them even having a chance in would be the home game with Jacksonville, at Cleveland, and maybe the home game with Buffalo, just because it's a home game and Buffalo's not going to be that great, as we'll talk about in a few minutes. But really, those are the only 3 games that I can see where they might not be at least touchdown underdogs. So I do think they will probably win at least one of those and not go totally winless, but just based on looking at the schedule, I don't see a game that I would just give them. So 1-15, 2-14, probably a little more likely, but we're going with 0-16 right now. All right. Next up, number 3, the Buffalo Bills. So it is pretty clear that the Bills are taking a we're playing for next year mentality. They are not doing anything like the Jets, where the Jets are pretty much acting like they want to lose. I don't think Buffalo is doing that, but they certainly are not in a win it now frame of mind with some of the moves that they've been making. They haven't been decimating the team, but they certainly have been acquiring draft capital, some younger players, shedding some contracts, moving on from guys that they don't see as part of their future, even if they might be slightly more talented than the guys that they have on the roster to replace them. All that goes to them being somewhat mediocre again. So I don't think they're going to be terrible. I don't think they're going to be good. I have them at 6-10. Given that they've basically been 7-9 wins every season recently, this is just a touch worse than that. And they do have a harder schedule, so even that's just part of it. Again, if you look at it, I have them winning a couple of good games. Like I have them beating Denver, decent team at home. Winning against New Orleans. They have a really tough road schedule. Really, the only easy game I see that they have is at Cincinnati. Well, and of course the Jets, at Cincinnati and at the Jets. Other than that, they have, obviously they have Miami and New England. But then they also are at Kansas City, which is tough. They're at Atlanta, which is obviously a very good team. The Chargers, not as much so, but still, these is a couple of potentially winnable games, but for the most part, I don't see them finishing above 500. All right. Next up, number 2, the Miami Dolphins. The Tannehill injury, I don't think is a huge deal because I don't think he's that much better than Cutler. Basically, the big thing is you kind of know what you're getting with Cutler. There is a range, and the top of his range is probably what you would have expected with Tannehill, maybe even slightly better than what you would expect from Tannehill. But Tannehill did a lot better last year, and he had the potential of maybe really taking a step forward. So if he had improved, he would be a lot better than what you would expect from Cutler. But on its face, without him doing that, I don't think they lost all that much. So I still think this is a pretty good team, more or less, right around where they were last year. They had the same record, but a tougher schedule. So really, they probably are slightly better, in my opinion, because of that. One scheduling note, I didn't rearrange this because I already had the graphics all made up, but because of Hurricane Irma, They are not playing this week, and that game against Tampa Bay is moving to Week 11, so in between the at Carolina and at New England. Um, so I had them winning the game before. I still have them winning the game, and I don't think it changes anything immediately after that, since I already had them losing to New England. So missing out on the bye just makes that a little bit more likely. We'll see if not having any rest at all after the first week affects them negatively. In that Denver game that I have them winning the following week, or some of the other games like the at Buffalo. I really just don't think so. So they're going to be a pretty good team again, but really they're not going to challenge the Patriots. And speaking of the Patriots, of course, number one, the New England Patriots. So in the exact opposite situation from what we were talking about with the Jets, I am not necessarily standing by this prediction because I have them going 16-0. And basically, I mean, look at Vegas. They're favored in every single game, so I picked them in every single game. They actually don't have an easy schedule this year. They play every single AFC playoff team from last year, a total of 6 times. So 5 other teams, but they play Miami twice. And they play Atlanta, the defending NFC champion. So that's pretty good. Plus they play Denver and Tampa Bay, both of which were 9-win teams and missed the playoffs last year. So not a weak schedule whatsoever. So what games might they lose? I think the 3 most likely would probably be at Tampa in Week 5. Because again, Tampa's a pretty good team. They're on the road. I think they'll be pretty motivated in that game. I think New England is a far better team, but that could be, Tampa's a little too good to call it a pure trap game. But something along those lines. So that's a possible one. I don't see it happening, but it's possible. The next most likely, I would say, would be at Oakland in week 11, their 10th game. If this was in the black hole in Oakland, I think I actually would pick Oakland in this game. But it is not. It's in Mexico City, so it's still an advantage, somewhat of a home field advantage, but it's a little bit closer to neutral site than like a pure rowdy, black hole, crazy Oakland fan kind of noise atmosphere that they could have had in a pure home game. Some people will say because it's a game at altitude, that would be a disadvantage for the Patriots, but it's not like Oakland plays in altitude all the time. They are more accustomed to it given that they've been in Mexico City before and they play at Denver, every single season. But New England is actually playing at Denver the week before, so they'll actually be used to playing at altitude. Some people are looking at that as a disadvantage. I actually think it's an advantage because they're going to be more conditioned for it. So because of those reasons, I actually don't put as big of I put Oakland at a slightly more disadvantage than they would have been in a pure home game. So they could lose that, but I'm still giving it to England. And then at Pittsburgh, probably the next most likely. I would have given this to Pittsburgh, but just for some reason the Patriots just own Pittsburgh. It doesn't matter, and it doesn't matter if it's home or if it's away. They just usually beat them. And that, even though this could be a really important game for both teams, like depending on, this game basically could be for the number 1 seed, which is one reason why I think the Patriots are not going, will be playing hard in it regardless of what happens. But it is, Pittsburgh, I think, is probably in my opinion, is the second best team in the AFC, maybe the second best overall team in the NFL. And it is in Pittsburgh. And it is New England's 3rd straight road game. So all of those things kind of working against them, but I still just have a hard time picking them just because, like I said, they just own them. And the bigger the situation, the more likely they are to beat them. So those are so I'd put those as the most likely ones that they could lose. Then the other ones that, wouldn't be utterly shocking. So tonight, with Kansas City, just because Kansas City is a pretty solid team, but I just don't see that one happening. Atlanta at home in Week 7. again, very good team, but being that it's going to be at home, and I could see it happening, but I just don't think it will. At Denver in Week 10, but this is coming off their bye, and they are leaps and bounds better than Denver. Sorry, Broncos fans. Denver is just not nearly as good as New England. However, the defense is still tough. They always play them pretty tough, and New England has always had trouble in Denver. If this game was at Foxborough, I wouldn't even be talking about it. But in Denver, they do have a tough time, so I would not be shocked if they did lose this game. I don't think they will, but I wouldn't be shocked. And finally, at Miami in Week 14, so their fourth to last game. If Miami is playing really well, probably would have to do a little bit better than I have them doing up to that point. They could be still, mildly in contention for the division, and certainly would still be in contention for a playoff spot unless they really crap the bed, in which case I don't think they have a chance of winning this game. So they might play them hard. And I guess if it's actually a slightly different situation where New England has already more or less sewn up the division, but Miami is still fighting for a playoff spot, they might have a much higher level of motivation than New England does. But it's a little too early in the season, I think, for that to really be the case. So there you go. I don't see an obvious loss on it for them, but that being said, 16-0 seems extraordinarily unlikely. I think they lose at least one and possibly two, and wouldn't be shocked if they even lost as many as three. If they lose more than three, I'd actually be very surprised. I think 15-1 is actually what I would just pick off the top of my head. But like I said, I don't see an obvious loss, so I'm just not gonna say that they are gonna have one. All right, so this actually concludes all of our NFL division previews. So we are going to do some power rankings and some playoff predictions before the game tonight. And then we will have power rankings every week after that. So stay tuned for all of that. And appreciate you being here. Thanks for watching. And please like, comment, and share the videos, and subscribe to our channel. You can also follow us on social media. Facebook and Twitter are both at MA Sports Central. Thanks, and we will see you soon.